He's a provider. He's taking care of home because he bought a nice house. I don't care if he slaps me every now and again. I do not care about the disrespect. I know he's out there messing with other women. My best friend sent me something. It's this TikTok for a lady called, she goes by REESA TEESA on TikTok. And she was kind of breaking it down to me what was happening and what this lady was sharing. Now, if you have not seen this person's series, I would not recommend that you watch every single one. But if you can, if you do have that kind of time, maybe put it in your earphone and listen while you're doing something. That's what I did. I listened while I was at the gym. I listened while I was cleaning. So you could do that. So you're not just sitting there, you know, doing nothing. But anyway, I listened to as far as I could. And let me tell you something. She is just a reminder of how important it is for us to be able to identify red flags, trust ourselves, trust our instincts, and also to love ourselves enough to know when something doesn't feel right, when something doesn't sit right, and to stop making excuses. I, for one, will tell you that I have been in those situations before, more than once. I have been in relationships where the red flags were there from the jump. And I oftentimes ask myself, like, why, looking back, I'd be like, why on earth would I have settled for that? Why on earth would I try to make it work, seeing what it was in the beginning, seeing all these writings on the walls, seeing all the signs? Why would I do that? And I know, like myself, oftentimes you might ask yourself the same question, like, did I not see who this person was? Was it not obvious that this person isn't for me? And we still pursue it. And so I listened to her story, and I do not want to ruin it for you if it is your intention to listen. But long and short of the story is, she met a guy. All the signs were there that the guy wasn't it. And every time that she saw that he wasn't it, she explained it away. Like, her gut was saying, hey, this isn't it. There were signs. There was God speaking to her. And every time there was another sign, another reason not to move forward, she kept pushing. She kept pursuing. She kept making excuses for him. I remember there was a part there where she said she knew he was lying. She had done the research. She had done the investigation. She knew this man was lying. At this point, she caught him in the lie, and she said, I kind of just said to myself, you know what, I'm going to allow him to get out of this. So pretty much she knew ahead of time that he was going to come and lie, but she already prepared herself for him to lie and prepared herself to accept the lie. There's so much that goes on in her story because she did, like, I think 52 parts, and TikTok allows 10 minutes, so do the math. So definitely I wasn't going to listen to all of those. But there are so many parts in her story where I was like, wait, what? Sis, are you okay? What? But then there were also parts where I could understand why she was doing it. I could understand why she felt the way that she felt. I could empathize with her as far as where she was, where she might have been, because one of the things that she said that really, really connected with me, that really struck a nerve, was where she said she wanted to be married so bad. She wanted a family so bad. And she saw everyone else around her having the happily ever after, having the children, having the husband, having the happy home, that she felt like this was her turn. And when she said that, I'm like, wow, do you know how many women out there are literally settling in situations that they know isn't for them, but they feel like maybe it's just my turn, maybe it's my turn, maybe it's finally my turn. They see what it isn't, but they figure if they wish that it is, or if they pretend that it is, or if they create it, then it can finally be their turn. And so when she said that, I started looking at it differently. I mean, I wasn't exactly judging her. I was judging some of the decisions that she made, and I was also judging myself because I'm like, man, you've done something similar, right? But then I started to look at it differently. And so I went into looking at it what is the reason why we ignore red flags? Because we see all the signs, we read all the quotes, and it says, do not ignore the red flags, believe a person when they show you who they are, all that. But it seems like it goes in through one ear and it comes out the other, because way too many of us have the same story, maybe a different person, maybe variations in the story, but it's the same story. You'll hear women say, and I knew it wasn't for me. I knew before I married him. I knew before I got pregnant. I knew before we moved in. I knew before I committed that this wasn't it. And even for men, for a man watching this, the same thing. You can think of something that happened that said, this girl isn't for me. Maybe I shouldn't pursue this girl. Something happened. Like she said, there was a point where I think it was her first date. On her way to meet this guy, her tire blew out. And now she's looking back and she's like, man, wow. Yeah, that was probably God saving me from meeting him in the first place. And I mean, many of us, we would just say, oh, it's just a flat tire. People have flat tires all the time. But we have to train ourselves to see things. We have to pray. We have to trust God. We have to rely on God. Ask for discernment, so that when these things happen, we don't just brush them off and say, oh, you know, tires pop every day, it's no big deal. This woman almost lost control of her car to go meet this man the first date. And then there are so many similar stories you'll hear people share that, you know, on the first date this happened, or on the first week after we met this happened, and the car whatever, and this happened, and there were just so many things happening. The signs were there, but she just kept thinking, maybe it is my turn. And so I'd like to share some points with you that I went into to do the work to find out why. That's what sparked my curiosity. Not, oh my God, women are so stupid, or people are so stupid, why are you ignoring it? It's more like, what is the reason why we ignore red flags? What is the real reason? Because it's not because of lack of hearing it. It's not because our friends don't say it, or our pastors don't say it, and we don't hear it on the radio, we don't hear it on social media. So what is the reason? So let's get into it. Reason number one, optimism bias. This is usually the people who are so optimistic that you want to see a happy ending, that you want to see it work, that you're hoping that it will work, that you know how you see something negative happening, you see it happening, you see that it's obvious, but you're so optimistic that you're like, well, let's not view it in a negative light. Let's look at things positively. So you will see the negative thing and you'll try to make a positive out of it. You cannot make a positive out of a negative. That's not what optimism is. Optimism is always expecting positive things, living in a positive space, but you cannot take a negative thing and make it positive. It doesn't matter what this person does, they will paint themselves red and paint across your eyes, but you cannot see that it is negative, because you're just gonna be optimistic and that's gonna fix everything. Number two, fear of confrontation. There are a lot of people who will do that. They do not want to address the red flags because they're afraid that it's gonna cause some argument, or they're going to have to defend their point, or this person is gonna have to do all this to prove this, and you don't like that feeling. So there are a lot of people out there who are in relationships, who have entered into relationships seeing the red flags, but they do not want to address them, and also they do not have the guts to just move on. So they'd rather just ignore them. They'd see that, yeah, he showed signs of being a cheater, he showed signs of being aggressive, I could see that, but instead of talking about it, I would rather just pretend it's not there. I'll just close my eyes, kind of turn my back to it, and in my head I'll just say, you know, if I don't talk about it, it's not real. You know, that kind of thing. Like we speak of some things and you're like, oh, don't speak it into being, but this is something that you see happening. There's something that you see signs, like for example, men who become abusive. You will hear the woman say, oh, there was a time when he got upset and he punched the door. There was a time when he got upset and he said some things. There was a time when he spoke about what he did to his ex. Oh, if you do this to me, I'm going to do that to you. Those are signs, but the fear of not wanting to be confrontational, or feeling that this person might be confrontational, can be a reason why we, not me, but just say, hey, just leave it. Number three, attachment to outcome. Many times when you see people ignoring the red flags, they see them, they see them. It's because they feel like they have invested so much emotion, so much energy, so much time in this person. You have sown so many seeds that the idea that I'm just going to have to walk away and leave it where it is and I'm never going to reap the happily ever after is really devastating for them. And so they'd rather just hang in there hoping. So they're, instead of living in the present, acknowledging that the now just isn't working out, acknowledging that right now is what the future will be, they'd rather say, okay, eventually all this has to change. All this somehow is going to have to make a turnaround because one day I have to see my investments return. And a lot of times too, that is because of friends, that's because of family, because you've already posted this person on social media. You have already told your coworkers about them. And so the thought now that you told your mom that this looks like your husband, this looks like your wife, you already told your friends that this is the person you want to have kids with, this is the person that you love, and there is no other person like them, and nobody ever made you feel this way, you have to see an outcome. So regardless of whether this person is going to be transformed or not, you, in order to survive, in order for you to feel content with all that you are doing and all that you have done, you have to hang on to the hope that the outcome will make sense. The outcome will explain what you're going through right now. There are people like that who, like for me personally, when I hear a person sharing their story, especially if they're married, and they talk about how beautiful life is now, and then it goes to, but I had to go through so much, and he cheated on me this number of times, and he hurt me, I check out. I do not want to hear that. I do not want to hear none of that. That's just me. I don't think it is a successful love story if it had to start with you being beaten and you being hurt constantly, with you crying on the floor, with you having to confront other people because of this person, with you having to beg this person to love you right. I don't think it's cute when a person like makes a post and they're like, oh, after years of hoping, that's not success to me. This is enjoy what you have, enjoy your present, but I'm not excited for that. I do not get any form of emotions. It's like, oh yeah, well, good for you that you stuck it out, that you chose to struggle, not me, bye. And so a lot of people do not want to acknowledge that, okay, this might not yield the outcome that I'm looking for. They just feel like if I put all of this in, it's like if you invest in anything, you invest in stock, you want to see your outcome. And a lot of people do not even know when, hey, it's time to call it a day, sell it, whatever you got to do. They just feel like there are a lot of people who invest who are like that. They just feel like one day this is going to be big and I have to see it be big so that I can have a story to tell. Sometimes there will be no story. I will not say that there aren't times when people transform. That's because of them though, not because of you, not because of what you have done, but because they chose to. And also bear in mind that sometimes they will change, but they will not change for you. They will change when they are ready and when they meet someone that it's worth changing for. Bear that in mind. Number 4, be desire for approval, which kind of ties in with number 3. We so badly, like she said, what's her name? REESA, TEESA, like she said, she saw everyone else around her having it. She felt like she was getting older and she felt like it was just her turn. How many of us can relate to that? Like you see everyone else around you and it seems like they're accomplishing all these things and it seems like they're getting the things that you want. And so you might see something that is the carbon copy, something that is not even close, but you will take that because you want people to say, okay, she has that too. I remember when I decided that I wanted to be single and so many people would ask me like, what's wrong with you? Why are you single? Like there has to be something. They thought that was a red flag because I was single, right? Funny. But all that it was that I was not, I didn't need approval that much for me to jump into something with someone. I didn't need the approval of others that much for me to skip from rotational dating to just dating someone off the bat without reason, without them giving me reasons to date. And so a lot of times the red flags that women see, and I keep saying women because I know that I have mostly women on here, but if you are a man, this also goes for you. Men see red flags too and still ignore them. But a lot of times the see, the signs that we see that we try to pretend they're not there, that we're optimistic about, that we hope for a positive outcome, it's simply because you do not want people to think that you are failing. You want people to see that you are having this happy life. A lot of people, I cannot tell you the number of people that I know personally who will pretend all day, every day on social media, in person. They will put on a whole show for their friends, for their families, ignoring all the red flags because they want people to see that they're doing well. There are a lot of couples, a lot of people. Do not be fooled by what you see, because there are many people out there who are seeing the signs daily in their homes, daily in their lives, seeing what the partners are putting out. It's very clear, but they want people to say, oh wow, she has a beautiful marriage. Oh wow, she has a husband who loves her. Oh wow, she has a husband who provides. Wow, she has a husband who respects her. When the truth is, it could be farther from the truth. She has a husband who does not care about her feelings, a husband who cheats, a husband who acts like she doesn't exist, a husband who ignores her. But the validation of others is so important. You do not want people to think, oh my God, she made a mistake. You might not want people to think, oh my God, she can't get anything right. I've seen people say that, oh, what's wrong with her? She can't keep a man. What's wrong with him? He can't keep a woman. The truth is that some people are just not to be kept. And I implore you, if you are in that situation, if you are in a relationship, if you are married to a person and you know deep down the red flags are there, they are covering your eyes, the flag have fallen over your head, do not ignore the signs and stay into a situation because you're worried about what people are going to say. So what if they say you cannot keep someone? Your peace of mind should be more important to you than people saying, oh wow, she's getting older and she's not married yet. She's getting older and she doesn't have kids yet. He's doing this and he doesn't have anyone yet. It is more important for you to protect yourself and to have your peace of mind than to ignore the flags because you want people to think you're happy. I would want to think that the goal should be to be happy in real life and not so much about people thinking that you're happy. On to point 5, lack of awareness. There are people who cannot identify red flags because they do not know what they're looking for. They usually do not know what they want. They do not know what they have to offer. They do not love or value themselves enough. And so if you are unaware, then the signs will be there. I've seen people try to highlight things like, did you not realize that? And people will pass it off. Oh no, I'll see like women will disrespect men and they say, oh, that's how she is. No, that's a red flag. She's going to disrespect you constantly. She's gonna be up in your home disrespecting you in front of your children. She's not being funny. That's who she is, right? But there are people who are unable to identify these things, who are unable to see what a red flag is, who are unable to acknowledge that, okay, this might be a problem. There are women who are unable to acknowledge that a man slapping them upside the head could not be love. That is because you are unaware of what love should look like. You are unaware of what a person does when they care about someone, unaware of what healthy relationships look like. And so in this situation, I often say, especially if you're coming out of a situation that was toxic, I would say, give yourself a break, give yourself some time, go to counseling if you need to, just find a therapist so you can pour out all that. And sometimes that person can help you get back in line so that you can understand what healthy looks like. I understand there are many people who weren't raised in a healthy home, so they don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. They don't know how a man should be treating a woman. Maybe all their friends are in the same abusive, toxic situations, and so they don't know better. But you have a responsibility as an adult. You have a responsibility to yourself. You owe it to yourself to require the very best of someone. And so if you don't really know what that looks like, go ask for help. Go seek counseling from someone. Go seek counsel. Pray. Ask God what it is that He requires of you. Pray and ask God to open up your eyes so that you can see what is not of Him, what is not good for you. Help Him to help you to identify what healthy looks like, what non-toxic looks like, what good, loving, caring relationships look like, what good, caring, loving relationships actually look like. Yeah. On to point 6. Emotional investments. This one has to be the hardest for many. It might be the songs of many people worldwide why they ignore red flags. When you're so excited by someone and so head over heels in love, you're so caught up in this person, you cannot see your life without them. Tell me how I'm supposed to breathe with no air. I can't live, can't breathe with no air. I understand. And that a lot of times is the reason, like the idea of not having this person in your life makes you feel like you do not even want to be here. And so I would want to think that should have actually been number one, but I would want to think that's the explanation for many. You love this person too much. You've been with this person for 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years and nothing changed. And the signs are there. The signs are forever there that this person is a cheater, that this person is a liar, that this person is not dependable. But you stay because you feel like there is no life without them. And I've often heard the saying, oh, I'd rather stay in this situation that I know than to go into a situation that I don't know. Okay, so you'd rather stay in a situation that you know to be toxic, that you know to be unhealthy, that you know to be mentally draining, that you know to be disrespectful, than to take your chance to go into something that could be healthy, that could be refreshing, that could nourish your soul. And I understand sometimes the fear of the unknown is what keeps so many people stuck, because you're like, oh, I'm going to have to reintroduce myself all over again. So what? So what if you have to go on another first date? So what if you have to ask the person, what's your favorite color? Which I hope no one's doing that, because we're in 2024. Asking what's your favorite color is really back in maybe the 90s. I don't think anyone in this day and age should be asking what's your favorite color. But what I was saying is sometimes the thought that I will not have this person. Like there are people who would rather have a fraction of a person than to have a whole person, than to risk having a whole person. You would rather have this person as disrespectful as they are, as hurtful as they are, as unreliable as they are. They would rather have that because they're so head over heels. This is the part where self-love is necessary. Self-love is needed, because if you love yourself enough to demand more, to know that I am worthy of so much more. If you love yourself to the point where you're like, nah, I'm sorry, I will not settle for that. I do not care if I have to go on 25 first dates. I will, until I get to a place where someone shows me that they want to earn my love, that someone shows me that they want to take care of me, that they want to take care of my mental health, my physical health, and so on and so forth. If you love yourself enough and you value yourself enough and you see yourself as worthy enough, you will never love a person to the point where you allow them to constantly hurt you. You will never love someone to the point where you continuously ignore the red flags over and over and over again, because you are clouded by the judgment. You're clouded by your own judgment. You're clouded by what you want this person to be. Let me tell you, emotional attachment can be one of the hardest things. It's almost like it's from the devil. It's like the devil uses your emotions against you. I have been there. I have been in a situation before where the signs were there. It was obvious, but I was so emotionally attached to that person. It almost felt like a soul tie. Like, why can't I just walk away? But you're like, okay, maybe if I love them enough, then these things will go away. Maybe I'll just close my eyes and say, I love you, I love you, I love you 10 times. And when I open my eyes, it will be different. It will not be different. The signs will still be there. The red flags will still be there, waving on a windy day. And at the end of the day, you're still going to have to deal with them. You're still going to have to suffer for them. You're still going to have to deal with the repercussions of ignoring them in the first place. Point number 7, dependency on the status quo. This goes for those times when, for example, people who have children, they suffer more. Married people and people with children seem to suffer more from this, because you know this person isn't right for you. I have been there. I have been a young mother with a child, and the red flags were there. It was obvious that this person was just not going to work. But there was a point, there was a time when I was like, maybe I should try to make it work. Maybe I should try harder. Maybe I should give a little bit more for it to work, because just the thought that I'm going to now be a single mother or a young mother without a father in my my child's life, or not in a relationship, I felt like, man, that's not going to look very good. And of course, I grew up in church, so it's going to look even worse. Oh my God, your mother is in the church and you went outside and you got pregnant outside of wedlock and you are not together. Yeah, I know what that, I know what that feels like. And I know that is the story for so many women, especially because how do I explain that? One, I have this child, but two, this relationship is not working out. And so they stay for things like, oh, I'm going to work it out for the kids. Married people, the same thing, because how do I explain that this isn't working? How do I explain that the signs, I see all these signs, how will I explain this if I respond to these? How can I explain to the community that I'm a part of that I'm going to have to get a divorce, or God forbid, we're going to have to go to counseling? No, I'm not the kind of woman who has to go to counseling with her husband. I'm not the kind of woman who a man goes out and cheats on. I'm not the woman who has to raise her kids by herself without being in a relationship with this person. And usually it's just simple for the same reason. We want validation from others. We do not want to disrupt the natural flow that we have going on. We do not want to consider what life could possibly be if we're going to have to do it alone, or if we're going to have to do it with someone else. So it's more like, yeah, I see those signs. I see that flag hitting me on my forehead. I see that flag hitting me in my eyes, but I'm going to just let them there, let them do what they do. I do not want to cause an upset. I do not want to have to explain to anyone. There are a lot of women, especially who are in these situations, who just say, you know what, it's fine. It works. He's a provider. Home is cared for. I've heard that so many times. You know, I do not care about the disrespect. I know he's out there messing with other women. I know he's out there risking my life, risking my health, but you know what? He's doing better than what's her name's husband. He's still taking care of home. I still drive a nice car. We still live in a nice home. So I'm just going to ignore all these flags that one day this man might bring me an incurable disease. I'm going to ignore all of these signs and I'm going to stay with him because he allows me to drive a nice car, because he allows me to be a stay-at-home mom, because he's taking care of home, because he bought a nice house. I don't care if he slaps me every now and again. I mean, it's just a slap, right? All I have to do, if he leaves a scar, I'll just put some makeup on it. Like, what's the big deal if he's taking care of everything else? And that, again, it's simply because we do not want to upset the status quo. Number 8, wishful thinking. We see the flags, we see the signs, they're clear, but we just figure, it's not that big of a deal. And I don't see how this is going to affect the future. I don't see how there are going to be any real negative consequences if I ignore these now. I mean, yes, I can see that he has some aggression that he needs to work on. He just needs to work on himself, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. I don't think it's ever going to get to the point where he hits me or anything. I see right now that he has wandering eyes. I see that he comments heart eyes under every girl's half naked picture on Instagram. But I mean, it's just Instagram, right? It's just social media. I don't see the big deal with a man commenting heart eyes and saying, wish you were mine under other people's comments. Because in real life, I mean, he has me in person. Why do I care about what he comments? Why do I care that he's in other women's DMs saying, thick thighs save lives? That's not my problem. That's their problem. And as long as he does not meet up with them in person, I am good. As long as at the end of the day, he's coming back home to me. Wishful thinking, hoping that this will just stay that way and it will not get anywhere worse, and it's just gonna, it's not that serious. And your friends will say, girl, do you see how that man, do you hear how that man talks to you? And they're like, girl, girl, you don't understand his sense of humor. He's like that sometimes. Oh, don't take him too seriously. Wishful thinking. Stop. We gotta stop. Number 9 would be pressure to conform, which also ties in with like 2 of the points that I mentioned, because we feel like, and I go back to married people, you have to conform to what society considers normal. So even when you can see that this person isn't it, even when you can see the signs are there, even when everything in your head, your gut tells you that everything is absolutely wrong. You cannot see anything differently because what society says. Society tells you that every man cheats. Society tells you that you are stupid for leaving a man if he cheats on you, because what are you going to do? The next man is going to cheat on you too. I mean, are you dumb? Are you going to leave your man to someone else? Are you going to let this woman take over your life? Are you going to let her win? That's the norm that society creates for a lot of women. And so even when they see these things, even when the man gives them an STD, they're like, well, it comes with the territory. You'll argue, you'll fight, you'll cry, you'll do everything but walk away, acknowledging that the sign is there. The flag says this man does not respect you. This man does not like you. This man hates you. You'll see all that and you will still say, well, I'm not going to allow her to win. I've been with John for 10 years. She's not going to walk up in here after 9 years and think she can upset things. John and I have kids together. So I'm just going to ignore all of these, what's going on right now, and I'm going to stick beside him because that's my man. That's a norm that society has created that we have to break outside of. Thinking that what we want is too much, thinking that requiring that a person remain faithful is too much because society says all men cheat. Who's society? I don't care what nobody says. The Bible clears it up and says one man was made for one woman. I don't care what no one says. This is the standard. This was the standard that God made for man and woman, that one man takes one wife. A man should love his wife like Christ loves the church, and a woman should love and respect her husband. And I speak strongly on that because that is a deal breaker for me. And if I see signs of that, if I see a man and I see that he has wandering eyes and I see that he cannot seem to stay focused on me, if I see that he's a little bit too loving, too friendly, too close with every woman, I'm not going to ignore the signs. I'm going to call it what it is. I don't care what society says. Call me insecure or whatever, but it's a no for me. It's a no. The last one is overlooking small things. The things that we view as small, a lot of times the things that start to blind us, that starts to knock us out later on, there were small signs, there were the gut feelings, there were the little hints that we ignored. And oftentimes it's these hints that we ignore that just move on one day to become giants, to become giant monsters. So you see they're growing, like I used the example before, you heard him shout at you, you've seen him punch something when he was mad at you, you've heard him say, oh, she messes with me, I'll do this, I'll punch you in the face. He says it and you watch it and you leave it there and you leave it there like, that's something small, until one day it becomes a big thing. So even in REESA TEESA's case, there were small things, there were little hints that was just all over in the ear, all sorts of molecules, but they were obvious. There were obvious little things, and she reflects on it now and she's like, man, that was a thing. That was something I should have paid attention to. Yeah, when he said that, I should have followed up on that. I should have investigated that. I knew that something sounded off when he said that. I knew there was something off when he did that, but I didn't follow up on it. A lot of times the small signs are there, the small things that we choose to just look the other way like, that doesn't sound right, but I'll just leave it. No. Take the small things and understand that one day these small things will compile to be big things. So the little sign that you see, the little situation where one night you're out and his phone starts ringing and he keeps going and he can't turn the phone to you, that kind of thing, those are things that you need to pay attention to. That time when you were on the phone and he took a call, like, I'll give you a joke, right? I will give you a joke. So mind you, by then, him and I would have I realized that it wasn't going to work, but he was still coming around and still saying that he wanted to make it work. So right after I had my daughter, right? I think she was about maybe 2 weeks old or 3 weeks old. Her father had come by my house. So we're there and I asked him, he had her birth certificate. I think he was the one to file it or something, but he had it. And so he asked to do that. And I said, okay, no problem. I mean, it's whatever. Now he came by, he wasn't doing it on time. I kept asking and whatever. So I said, listen, give it to me, let me go do it. So now he came by my house and he made a call. So he called his mom and he said to her, I never forgot. That was I don't know if that was even small, but whatever. I picked up on it. So he said, yeah, the baby's birth certificate, I need it. And so I don't know what the mother said. And he said, no, the girl won. That was I was like, the girl? How do you say the girl? What are you talking about? You're talking about the baby's birth certificate. So what girl won? And right there in the back of my head, I was like, does this man have another child? Like, I knew at the time, I knew of him having one other child, and this was a girl. So I was like, how do you say the girl won? Why would you try to differentiate? And why does your mother have two birth certificates for whatever reason? Anyway, I held it in the back of my head. And again, he was like, oh, I need to make it work. We need to figure it out for her. She needs both her parents together. And so it wasn't long after that I saw someone and they're like, oh, I heard that you had the baby. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh yeah, what kind of baby did you have? I said, I had a girl and it slipped out of her mouth. And she's like, yeah, oh, that's funny because you have a girl and such had a boy. And I was like, yeah, that was a time that I should have addressed that flag. But I didn't. But I gotta say that because that was really funny. And I kept saying to myself, like, am I overreacting? Am I overthinking this? What did he mean by the girl one? And we tend to do that a lot. There's something in us that says, hey girl, hey, listen, something ain't right. And we tend to question ourselves. That's another thing that we need to learn to do. We need to learn to trust ourselves, trust our instincts. Do not be so quick. It's so funny how we will make excuses for men, but we will make excuses not to trust ourselves. You see how unfair is that? So it's quicker for you to say, you know, girl, maybe you're overreacting. Maybe you're just so hurt. Because even REESA TEESA said that too. She's like, at one point, everything was connecting. But she's like, are you sure you're not just jaded? Are you sure you've not been hurt so many times that you just can't trust the man, even though the signs were there? And that's not just her story. I saw a woman in the comments say, oh, you're so stupid. Why would you do that? In one way or the other, we have been at a point where we ignored our gut feeling, whether we acted on it eventually or it was after the relationship ended that we're like, oh, we should have acted on it. At least once we can remember where something just wasn't sitting right, something just wasn't connecting, something just did not feel like what we needed. Something didn't feel like it resonated with us, but we stayed in there and we made excuses and we figure, you know, this person will change. And I can tell you in this particular situation, in these particular instances, Delulu is not the Salulu. You do not sit over there and say, well, maybe if I love him enough, then these things will change. Maybe if I'm loyal enough, maybe if I stick it out, maybe if I'm the girl who stays since the others found out and left, then I will be rewarded in the end. If you see the flags and they are waving, I understand the emotional attachment. I understand not wanting to feel like a failure. I understand wanting to keep up with the status quo, but I also understand that you deserve the kind of love you so freely give to others. You deserve to be loved and respected the very way that you love and respect others. You deserve everything that you require in a partner. You deserve everything that you require in a friendship, because let's not pretend as if there are not red flags in friendships too. But whatever it is that your heart desires, if you are a good person, you deserve those things. And so my encouragement to you is to love yourself enough so that when those flags start waving, you know it's either time to back away, it's time to run away, it's time to not enter through the door. Do not go into it thinking that I'm just going to change this person. And if you are with someone and you see the flags, you see that this could become this could become that, address it. Do not be afraid of confrontation. Speak up for yourself. Make it clear, this is not what I am looking for. I am not going to be okay with this. I am not going to stand for this. Make it known to people what it is that you want. First of all, figure out what you want. Figure out what you are requiring, what you are requesting, and tell yourself that this is what you want. You will compromise, but you will not settled. I don't know who that word was for, but maybe it's time to start loving yourself and stop ignoring the signs. Now that we've gone through why we ignore the red flags, now we need to move on to how to stop doing that. So now we know, first, to fix anything, you have to know what the issue is, right? You cannot go treat something without diagnosing it. And since I just went into 10 reasons, there might be more, but based on what I found, I just went into 10 reasons to diagnose why we ignore red flags. Now that you have 10, if you have more, you could add it to it. You could comment it down below. You could make a note of it in your journal. But now that you know the reason why you ignore the flags, now it's time to figure out how to stop doing that. Work on yourself, work on becoming the best version of yourself so that people know that they have no choice but to elevate to get to love you, but to elevate to gain access to you. Make yourself that person and choose wisely. Thank you so very much for joining me again in another video. I look forward to having you in the next one. And if you haven't already, what are you waiting for to subscribe, like, share this video with someone so they can do some diagnostics themselves and so they can move on to being their best selves. Bye.